The Switch has been home to quite a lot of fighters this year, from the Street Fighter Collection to BlazBlue to Blade Strangers. But here comes SNK Heroines with a wildly different focus and playstyle aimed at a totally different audience. This is not a hardcore SNK game, nor is it something aimed towards the fighting game community. This is a very accessible, party-focused fighter with simple controls, items, and whatever this is. So the gist of SNK Heroines is the ladies of the SNK universe are dragged into a pocket dimension ran by a fetishist. So this guy puts them all in revealing clothing, and they of course have to do a lot of punching. You can combine any two characters together, and doing so will grant unique dialogue in the story for every character combination. But even with the huge amounts of possible variants, the story is still extremely shallow and comes across as little more than an excuse for why the women are dressed this way. Some of the default outfits are outright demeaning, like Mai Sharanai dressed up as a cow. Thankfully, the unlockable outfits are generally more tasteful, and you can even unlock some classic SNK gear. This stuff won't draw as many eyes on you when you're playing this game on the bus. And customization is a pretty huge focus of SNK Heroines, as while there aren't all that many modes to play across, being able to unlock new accessories and voice clips and outfits acts as the essence of replay value. No matter what mode you're playing, whether it be story, or versus, or online, and yeah, that's kind of it, you'll be rewarded with money after each battle. And with the sheer amount of accessories to unlock, you can be there for quite a while trying to get everything. But will you want to do so? Well, the core fighting is rather simple. There's basically light attacks, heavy attacks, special attacks, and finishers. You can throw together combos and switch characters to chain attacks, but there aren't any advanced inputs to learn. It's very accessible and pretty much anyone can pick it up and play. But outside of playing in quick spurts with friends, depth comes into question. This is a fighting system that relies on little more than timing, and there can only be so many different outcomes before you start seeing scenarios repeat themselves. Items do their part to spruce things up, but if you're playing with a single Joy-Con, they're activated with motion, which is a pretty obvious tell for your opponent to guard. The interesting part of the combat is you can only finish off opponents with a super. If you knock their HP down to 0, you'll just stun them, but if your gauge isn't full, you're gonna have to whack them a bit more until it is. It's an interesting wrinkle that makes supers a bit more integral, but it can also bring the action screeching to a halt.
Stun!
This is a party game at its core, not a competitive fighter, and for what it is, it's fine. I had a good time playing locally with a friend, and while we eventually got bored of the same 7 stages with generally the same outcomes, it served its purpose of giving us a quick burst fun party fighter. It's everything else though that comes into question. The single player is very shallow, really just consisting of the story, versus matches, and survival, which is the closest thing to an arcade mode. But I don't really think survival progresses in difficulty, and if it does, it happens very slowly. Speaking of slowly, the load screens aren't exactly the best. It's a far cry from being a real problem, but during story and survival, they can get a little bit grating. Yep, still going. But there is of course the online component, and in my pre-launch experience against fellow journalists, it didn't really work. A friend and I in the same country couldn't even connect, and the matches I did get into constantly ran at half speed. I suppose there's a chance this gets patched, but what I experienced just was not good enough. A shame too, as the setup was fairly elegant. SNK Heroines is shallow in a lot of ways, and while that may be the draw when playing with people who don't generally play fighters, there's next to no substance for anyone who wants anything more. It almost feels like the customization aspects of the fighters took priority over the core game, as not only does it lack modes, but there's a severe lack of things to do in them. I felt very meh about SNK Heroines. When you have friends together, it's serviceable for a bit, but outside of quick party bursts, there's very little to do in this game, and the lack of single player modes and terrible online left a very bad taste in my mouth. Accessible fighters have been done well in the past, but this is a very poor example of one. So what do you guys think of SNK Heroines? Let us know in the comments below, and of course be sure to subscribe to GameXplain for more on fighters, and other things gaming too. Until next time, bye.
Finish! Player 1 wins!
私の勝ちね、テリー。